Dr. Craig Evans is one of the foremost scholars alive today in the study of the historical Jesus, and he focuses especially on his death and resurrection. Dr. Evans has lectured in Cambridge, Oxford, Princeton, and Yale, and he's been interviewed by the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal. He's also served as a consultant for the Bible television miniseries, which is viewed by over 100 million North Americans. A prolific writer, he's published more than 70 books and hundreds of journals, articles, and reviews, and he is professor at Houston Baptist University. Dr. Evans, welcome.
Thank you very much, Kerry. Good to be with you.
It's good to have you back. So, Dr. Evans, as we get ready to mark Good Friday and then celebrate Easter, some questions about Jesus' life and ministry. So, why did Jesus' short 3-year ministry create so much opposition to his leadership? You write about that in his new book, your new book, rather, Jesus and the Remains of His Day. You know, he generated enough opposition to get him crucified. Like, why was he so controversial?
Well, I think the number one reason was because his vision of the kingdom of God, the way God would rule Israel, was clearly at odds with the way Israel was being ruled, not just by the Roman power that was immediately in control of Judea, where Jerusalem is, and Samaria, and indirectly through Herod Antipas, the surviving son of Herod the Great, who ruled over Galilee, where Jesus lived.
Right.
But it wasn't just that. It was the Jewish authority itself, the high priesthood, the way they were controlling the temple, the way they were receiving the sacrifices, the way they were not benefiting and blessing the poor the way the law of Moses required. And Jesus comes in talking about the kingdom of God, and the implications were obvious. There would be big changes, and the last thing that the high priest and his supporters, a very small number of elite priests, the last thing they wanted to hear about was change, and people loved it. They were huge crowds, just loved Jesus' teaching, but the ruling priest didn't like it at all.
Do you think there was jealousy involved there on the part of the religious leaders of the day, or a threat to the establishment then?
Yeah, there would have been. I don't know how much jealousy itself played a role, but feeling threatened, feeling that this could lead possibly to a riot, an insurrection, something like that. And of course, if that happened, then heads would roll. The Romans would have to move in. There would be damage, there'd be death, and likely the ruling priests themselves would be replaced. So they personally had a lot at stake. And so Jesus had a message they didn't want to hear. They didn't want him preaching it and encouraging people to embrace it.
Sometimes that challenges me. I know even as a preacher, you know, I think, wow, what side of this would I have been on had I been alive 2,000 years ago? That kind of conversation scares me.
I think any believing Christian who takes his own or her own faith seriously should ask that question, because it's easy to say, oh, I would always be on Jesus' side, never on the side of the ruling priests or the Pharisees who criticized him. Hey, listen, they were conservative people in their own time. A lot of us probably would have been on their side, and that's where we have to admonish ourselves, and we have to ask ourselves, where would I come down on that? And I think that's a healthy thing to do.
Yeah, because I mean, at the heart of it is change, and it's the willingness to be humble, it's the willingness to be open, and it's the willingness to say that we really have to allow God to move. This is not an institution created by man.
Yeah, if we get too comfortable in our own faith and never feel challenged, that's when I think there's something wrong.
It's a good challenge for us as we head into Good Friday and Easter Sunday. Dr. Evans, thank you so much.